July 1942. The Desert War had reached a boiling point. Rommel's Afrika Corps was pushing toward Egypt. British forces were stretched thin. Air superiority meant survival. And deep behind Axis lines, one airfield operated with confidence. Sidi Haneish. It was about to become a target. The strategic situation. By mid-1942, Axis aircraft were essential to Rommel's advance. They provided reconnaissance over British positions, strafing runs on supply columns, tactical bombing. If those aircraft could be destroyed on the ground, even temporarily, the pressure on British forces would ease. The SAS had already proven desert raids worked, but now security was tighter. Airfields were guarded, perimeters reinforced, patrols increased. To succeed, they would need speed, not stealth. The plan. The raid would take place on the night of 26-27 July 1942. Around 18 SAS men, multiple heavily armed jeeps, mounted Vickers K machine guns. No long infiltration on foot. No slow placement of explosives. Instead, drive straight onto the runway, open fire, destroy as many aircraft as possible in minutes, withdraw before organized resistance forms. It was audacious, it was dangerous, and it relied entirely on surprise. The approach. Under cover of darkness, the jeeps crossed miles of desert. Engines were kept low. Navigation was precise. Fuel calculations were exact. There would be no margin for error. If the vehicles were damaged or disabled inside the perimeter, escape would be nearly impossible. Every man knew this. Still, morale was high. This was no longer an experiment. This was what they did best. Entering the airfield. Shortly before midnight, the raiders reached the perimeter. Some accounts suggest they exploited weak points in defenses. Others indicate they drove through minimal barriers at speed. What is certain, they did not crawl. They did not hesitate. They accelerated. Jeeps burst onto the runway, engines roaring, and then the guns opened. The assault. The Vickers K machine gun had a very high rate of fire. Mounted in pairs on the jeeps, it turned each vehicle into a mobile strafing platform. The raiders drove between rows of parked aircraft, firing continuously into engines, fuel tanks, cockpits. Aircraft were lined up wingtip to wingtip, a fatal mistake. Tracers cut through the darkness, fuel ignited. Within moments, multiple aircraft were ablaze. Ground crews and guards were thrown into confusion. Some attempted to return fire, but the SAS were moving targets, fast, aggressive, unpredictable. The entire attack lasted only minutes, but in those minutes, devastation spread across the runway. The withdrawal. As quickly as they had appeared, they turned away. No prolonged firefight, no attempt to hold ground. The jeeps sped back into open desert. Behind them, Sidi Haneish burned. Explosions continued as fuel drums ignited. Searchlights swept uselessly across empty sand. The raiders had vanished. Damage assessment. Estimates vary, but approximately 30 to 40 aircraft were destroyed or severely damaged during the raid. For a force of fewer than 20 men, the impact was extraordinary. Aircraft losses meant reduced reconnaissance, reduced bombing capability, temporary operational disruption. But beyond numbers, the psychological shock was immense. An airfield believed to be secure had been attacked directly by jeeps. Strategic impact. The raid demonstrated a fully evolved SAS doctrine: mobility over mass, speed over stealth, shock over attrition. Axis forces were forced to reconsider rear area security.
Aircraft dispersal improved, perimeter defenses strengthened, resources diverted. Every adjustment cost time and manpower. For a small special force, this was strategic leverage. The human element. These were not large battalions. They were small teams operating hundreds of miles from support. Every raid carried enormous risk: mechanical failure, navigation error, enemy patrols, capture. If caught, the consequences were severe. But the men who conducted these raids understood something fundamental. Surprise was protection. Speed was survival. The legend grows. Sidi Haneish became one of the defining actions of the Desert SAS. It solidified their reputation. It proved that the Jeep assault method worked, and it showed that small units, properly trained and motivated, could strike targets normally reserved for larger forces. From this point forward, the SAS was no longer experimental. It was feared. Conclusion. July 1942. In the burning desert night of Sidi Haneish, the SAS demonstrated a new kind of warfare. Not massed divisions, not static front lines, but rapid, surgical destruction. They did not conquer territory, they destabilized it. And in doing so, they reshaped special operations doctrine for generations to come. The desert had become their weapon, and the night their ally.